This is Andrew Wicklund from Project Risk Consultants. I'm going to walk through resources in Primavera Risk, also known as Pertmaster. To get to the resource menu, click Plan in the menu bar, and resources will be down towards the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this resource, and you get a pop-up menu. So you'll notice towards the top left, you have Standard View and Advanced View, and then under you have File and a Help menu. So the Standard View, set up like a spreadsheet. You've got ID, description, type, so expense, labor, material, etc. This default or spread loading is very important, or back, front loaded. So for daily rates, you're going to use normal loading. For lump sum costs, spread loading or front or back loading. So in a risk analysis, more so than in Primavera P6 or Microsoft Project, because the durations are going to be variable doing a risk analysis, if the time increases, a normal loaded resource will increase. So say for example a normal loaded resource like a crew is on site and the crew costs $10,000 a day. Well, if that activity runs an extra 10 days, you use that crew an extra 10 days. Whereas a lump sum purchase like $1 million in steel doesn't necessarily cost more for the steel because the activities increase. It's whether or not the crews or the equipment is being rented for a longer period of time. So something like materials is often going to be a spread loaded resource. Very critical that that's done correctly. Now, because you're most likely going to be importing a file into Primavera Risk from whether it's Project, Open Plan, or P6 or P3, you want to make sure that that's done correctly in your original scheduling tool. If you've got everything done as a lump sum where all your spread costs and your normal costs are put together, duration is always going to drive the normal loaded resources out. So it's very important to get any value from doing any type of cost analysis in Primavera Risk that you have to resource load things correctly. And we won't spend too much time on this section because most of these resources you'll probably do in your original scheduling tool. But there are some things like maybe I've got liquidated damages on my project. I might put in a liquidated damage LD resource, and maybe that resource is $10,000 per day. I might put that resource in. I might not want that in P6. I might not want that in my scheduling tool. I might put it only into Pertmaster. You can put cost uncertainty as well for a resource. So if I said, well, my expenses, I had it set as $1 per unit, but it's really 0.90 to 1.4. I could put variability on the cost of the resource as well. So if you said, well, we've got an engineer, and that engineer costs somewhere between, we'll say, we think he's 150 an hour, but we'll put in somewhere between 140 and possibly 200 an hour. I can put that variability on the cost uncertainty as well. Then you've got a tab for unit of measure. You can type that in. You can put a resource calendar, whether the supply is infinite, or you can profile that. So I can put the profiles based on the start date and how much supply do I have, and whether or not I would level on that resource. So if you're going to do resource leveling, that can be done in Primavera Risk as well. Once again, the more you get into resource leveling and some of those things, it's very important to do things correctly. A lot of these things sound great in theory, but they're very difficult to maintain and do well. So just keep in mind the software is fairly flawless in the way it will calculate things. Problems that arise are usually from the user end. So, but resource leveling and the algorithms are very similar to like you're going to see in a lot of other scheduling tools. So I'm going to switch over to the advanced view, and that's the advanced view tab up towards the top left, and you've got the same view as before, but you'll notice I can set up sub resources as well. So if I set up a resource for team, I might say that the team consists of the engineer, damages, whatever, and just apply my sub resources to that. So now the calculated cost is coming up based on my sub resources here. So you can set up just simple resources. You can set up sub resources. The resources, if you set them up in another scheduling tool correctly and properly, they're just going to pop straight into Primavera Risk. So once again, it's another area where if you did things correctly in the original scheduling tool, you might not really have to mess with this screen. However, if you didn't set up resources, you want to do a simple cost analysis, or you're bringing things directly, no cost in, you can set things up pretty quick and easy, and then you can apply these resources. I can save the resources and load the resources as well. So if I click save, it'll save that to an XML file. Then I can reload my cost assignments. So once I do exit this and I save the plan, any edits I've made to the resources are part of this plan now, though. So all the resources have been changed. You don't have to do anything else. If that save and that load is if you want to take that same resource structure and give it to another project plan that's open. So then once you've got everything assigned, there's a resource tab towards the bottom. You'll see, for example, these resources that I've come up with here. I can assign like my engineer or my team resource here. So I'll take and assign that team resource that we just created. We can set the remaining units and all of that. So if you're familiar with scheduling tools, nothing there should seem very difficult. The ability to copy and paste, because this does function like a spreadsheet, will be nice and easy for people. Control C, Control V. Overall, though, if you've set it up in your original scheduling tool like most Primavera Risk users will have, you probably won't touch this screen a whole lot.